I mean, we're an island nation.
Yes, yeah.
We're an island nation. We talk about Brexit till the cows come home, and we want our fish back, and we want our trawlers back. Yeah. So we have this narrative of having, fish and trawlers. That's great because we're an island nation. I've got no problem with that. But when it comes to history, oh well, we never had fish in the past. We never had trawlers.
It's bizarre, isn't it? No boats or anything. It's weird.
You go.
Hello, I'm Ross from Britain's Hidden History, and I'm very excited to say I've got a series of interviews with prolific author Robert Langdon. He's got some amazing ideas. I'll link to his site in the description. If you've never seen his work, which is new to me, I have to say, fantastic. We got things like ancient canalways running through Britain, lots of stuff about hydraulics, now water and waterways, and how stuff worked. And an article which became very prominent that last week that he wrote was all about the discovery of what could be the world's oldest boatyard, and this was in Monmouth in South Wales. So that's what we're going to talk about first, and then there's more to come, and I promise you it gets very, very interesting.
The article you saw this week was one of three I actually published, all about prehistory and the what I see as propaganda, or the construct archaeologists have talked about in history, which doesn't actually portray British people as mariners and sea people. I have to be honest, one of the biggest frustrations I've had in studying history, prehistory particularly, is this term of hunter-gatherer.
Right, okay.
Now, hunter-gatherers, I'm very happy with for 2 million years when we was wandering around as Homo sapiens. But if we look at that article you was talking about today about the Monmouthshire boats, if you look at the archaeologists' quotes, they kept saying these hunter-gatherers that made these dugouts, and you go, if you're making boats, you're not a hunter-gatherer. Do we call the Tudor people hunter-gatherers who sailed halfway across the world in boats? No, they're not hunter-gatherers. These people are sailors. And one of the things that frustrate me, and hence my articles this week, is that I wanted just to put over a different version of British history, which I think has substantial proof now. So when we got the one you were talking about, the Monmouthshire slipway, and this is 6 years. What got me? It was something that actually I didn't write about in the first book. It's something that come up later, and I remember seeing it, printing it off, and leaving it, in the pile of to be revised. And so when I come across it this week, I thought, well, actually, it's a fantastic story. It's 6 years old. No one's actually taken it a step further than the local newspaper, and it was the local newspaper, Wales News, that published it. So I thought I'll give it a bigger audience. And to be honest, I just looked today; it had 10,000 hits on its first day. So it caught the public imagination, which I'm glad, because I think people should be asking questions. One of the big questions.
Should we just tell a little bit about what was found then? That was the...
Well, what was found there was 3 slipways, 2 large, 1 small. Now, the slipways are quite interesting because at the time of the excavation, it's in the middle of a housing estate. Now, sadly, although it's been identified at the time as the oldest boatyard in the world, and it may not be the case, but it's one of the oldest at least. They excavated it. They got 1 carbon date, which sadly I think is inaccurate because it's actually in the bottom of the slipway. There's 3 channels, and within the 3 channels there is a carbon date, and it's the only carbon date for the site. What you must understand is that this was a housing association archaeologist, bless his heart, they don't have much money. They don't want him to find anything because they don't want to stop the housing estate.
This is one of the big issues in archaeology at the moment. It's like permission to build
huge,
rather than a determination to find, isn't it?
absolutely, it's a huge thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it always might say, well, if America found the oldest building boatyard in the world, do you think they would have just built a house on top of it?
That's bizarre, isn't it?
It's bizarre. You say it should have had a museum on top and it should have preserved it. It didn't do that. This is Britain.
Maybe if it was Roman, you see, if they could show it was Roman, they'd have a museum over it.
Absolutely. We know that. Prehistory, let's build over it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's someone at this present moment in time sitting in their lounge, having their breakfast, and underneath them is the oldest boatyard, and they're completely oblivious to the fact.
So the building, because that's the other thing I wanted to ask. In the article, it didn't really say what the follow-up was, because he said it was 6 years ago. So what happened then? The building just continued, did it? Or
yeah, no, they gave it back. They what they do, they record, took the photographs, which is on the website, and basically hand it back, take the carbon dating, do an excavation report, which to be honest was unbelievably flimsy, and then hand it back to the builders. And the builders go, that's fine, dig the foundations, guys. There's a trench there already. We don't have to dig too far.
yeah. It is tragic, isn't it? God.
It's gone. But what's interesting, and this is this construct with archaeologists, when they looked at this, to me, you go, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's not a boat, it's a catamaran. I mean, that is a different class of boat. But what they try to do is play.
Well, that's huge, isn't it? Because I mean, obviously, all the connections. Then you start. I mean, we have to explore. We don't know, but all the connections you think about are the Polynesians and worldwide travel.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you look at it,
suddenly opens up, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You go, okay. If it's a catamaran, which obviously, two large holes and a smaller
outriggers or whatever. Yeah,
outrigger. It is then asked the question: what would you use that for? What would you use something of that size? Is it there to transport what I would imagine large stones? Because it's very
that big, is it?
Yeah, very, very stable. I mean, if you think about it, if you're going to transport, let's say, look at Avebury or Stonehenge, if you're taking 10, 12 ton stones, you don't put it on a
so it's going to capsize. Yeah.
Absolutely. You put it across two bows with a stabilizer, and you float it. Then, and you go, that makes sense. The design of that makes sense. Two things come from that. You go. Well, the engineering skills to actually understand that is immense. And again, hunter-gatherers don't have those engineering skills. Let's be honest.
It's just a derogatory term, really, isn't it? This.
It is. I think it's a huge insult to our ancestors. These guys had massive. I'll be honest.
Some sort of society and organisation, mustn't they? By definition, really.
Precisely. I mean, me and you can sit here and we can talk about boats. The chance of me and you with good educations of actually designing the boat that would actually succeed in carrying such objects,
wouldn't it?
yeah, it's nil. It would sink. And it's quite interesting. I have to be honest. That there was a program with Mike Parker Pearson called Stonehenge. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh yeah, we commented on that as well. Yeah, I'd shown.
I've commented on that as well. One of the interesting comments he turned around because he's come up with this wonderful ox cart route, that takes the A40 and people dragging stones 200 miles, because that's what you do, really, don't you? Rather than putting it on a boat. And he said, "Oh, we've tried that, and it sunk. Therefore,
That's
you go,
then, okay,
yeah. Who tried it? Heck, are we talking about? No offense, an academic." Study lobbed a 4-ton stone on the boat and it sunk. Well, there's no real great surprise to that, is there? The interesting thing, and which was on one of the articles this week, is that I showed the picture of one of the Stonehenge archaeologists, Atkinson, in the 60s. Now, Atkinson in the 60s turned around and said, Actually, I think they might have transported these stones from Wales to Stonehenge by boat. And he got 4 schoolboys on a boat, and would you believe, double-hulled boat, yeah? Right. And he floated a 4-ton stone very successfully, 4 boys punting down the Avon. And you go, well, he done it. Mike, did you not read that report? Yeah, they done it, and are you just poo-pooing their idea because you want to go for this strange ox cart route down the A40? And I'll be honest, I think it's an insult to these people and say, well, what would you rather do? Spend 2 years dragging a stone across? I mean, and then the fallacy of it is that at the time, 60%, I believe, of that route would have been forest. It's not flat grassland.
Yeah, you'd have to clear a road as well, wouldn't you? Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, yeah. Once you wait for the Romans to come, invent the road, then you can drag your stone, not a problem.
Well, I think you'll find plenty of roads before the Romans came, but we'll go into that. Yeah.
So this Monmouth site opens up a worm of possibilities and questions, more questions than answers. The interesting aspect, when they looked at it, they then, rather than saying that these were proper hulled ships, they come to the conclusion, and I don't know how you can come to the conclusion, these were log dugouts again. We're back to the Bronze Age.
Yeah. Those primitive form, yeah. Well, it might work, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, these are slightly rounded at the bottom, but square slips. So this is a ship slip. How could you possibly know what the material or how the design of the boat? All you know, it had a double hull and a support.
So how do you know about the double hull and the support then? What's the evidence?
Because of the alignment, it's 3 lines parallel to each other on the slipway, which means it had to be a double hulled vessel plus the outrigger.
So the slipway is actually designed to channel the different hulls.
Absolutely. So you got this unique slipway, and you go, that's fine. The other thing is, again, I question the date, because they say that we found a half, which is fine, that's good. I like halves. But the half was in the bottom of one of these slipways. Now, you're not going to build a fire at the bottom of a slipway if the boat's there, because it burns it down. It's farcical. What you would have, once it was disused, these slipways would turn into ruts in the ground. Now, if you're a Bronze Age person wanting to light a fire, normally we know it's quite, especially Monmouthshire, it's quite windy.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And possibly
so you want a bit of shelter. So the logic is, if you're going to build a fire, you go down a dip, you build your fire there, because it's. So this was at a much, much later date. Now we know this because this slipway is in the middle of nowhere. It's 60 to, I think it's 60, 70 yards away from the local river.
Right.
What they've come up with, and again, it was, it must have been a glacial lake.
Yeah, I saw something about the ancient lake, yes, yeah.
Yeah, glacial lake. That means it's 10,000 years old, because that's when the glacier was here. It's an ice age lake, and they tried to come up with this idea. It drained very slowly, and you go, really? It doesn't make sense. So what I've done, I produced a map from the British Geological Association, which shows the superficial surfaces underneath, including alluvium, which is obviously signs of running. You don't get alluvium in lakes. Alluvium comes from rivers flowing,
right.
And that area is covered in alluvium. So what's happened, this is when that river was 80 meters wider in the past. Now, one of my hypotheses, and I've done a recent book on it, which is, it shows categorically that rivers in the past were larger than today, which, to be honest, is common sense. Everybody sees rivers diminishing by the year. So obviously, if you backdate,
that's why they require dredging and stuff. Yeah.
So what if you can? What I tried to do is reverse engineer to see when this river, and I've done some illustrations to show where this site was compared to the river. it shows that it was probably made about 6,000 to 8,000 years ago, not 1700 as they say. So it was there where the river was enlarged. So it's very, very old. It's basically Mesolithic stroke early Neolithic, which I find really, really interesting because, we're talking about Stonehenge. This is the time where Stonehenge has been moving their stones around, down the road in Preseli. I think it's a boat. Are we looking at evidence of a boat that may have actually taken those stones?
So what sort of weight? I thought I can see the model of Stonehenge in the background there. So what sort of weight were those the Preseli stones then? I mean, I thought they were a bit larger than that.
Preseli stones are about 4 tons.
Oh, they're about 4 tons. Okay, I thought they were larger.
They're about 4 tons. The Sarsens, you said.
The Sarsens are the bigger ones, right?
About 12 to 20. Right. They're big. Much later. I personally think they're much later date. The Preseli ones, I'm very happy with, roughly about that date, because a lot of, to be honest, and I've met Mike before. He's a really nice guy, but I think Mike's got his dates wrong for Stonehenge. I think it's much earlier, because I'm a very big believer in halves and getting dates from halves, and the halves from the Preseli Mountains, again, are Mesolithic, not Neolithic. Mm-hmm. So I think the dates he's been playing with are wrong, and that's why you can't find this 500-year-old site. It's, to be honest, it was an interesting documentary.
So what do you mean? Yeah, because I tend to go with it being much more recent. There you go. A different.
Well, the thing is, it's been moved so many times that what you.
So what do you mean? What the Stonehenge has been moved, or the dates have been moved?
Well, no, the dates are going back all the time as they find the interesting aspects. Yeah. The dates are going. They've gone back about 800 years since I started writing the book. It was 2,500. When I first started writing, and it's now up to about 3,300 now. Okay. So you go, blimey, in 10 years it's moved back, 800 years. But that's no surprise. I mean, if you look at the history of Stonehenge, you look at Stukely, the first one, it was a Roman solar temple. And because they found Roman coins, and that was it.
Everything's Roman anyway, yeah.
Everything's Roman. Everybody was happy. Yeah, nice bit of Roman engineering.
That's like a catchphrase on Britain's Hidden History. Everything's Roman, That's whatever you find. And if it's not Roman, you're not interested.
No. But the third thing, which I think is actually more interesting, and it's not being picked out. The third thing I published today again, and this is not 6 years. This is 5 years old. Was another boatyard was found in the Solent. Under the Solent.
Yes.
On the cliff.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did hear about that a little while ago, and I really wanted to find out more about that.
Yeah.
Because I've got someone living near the area who put me onto it, and it's there. I think it's submerged now. Is that the one?
It is, and that's the fascinating, and that's the thing that is foxing, I would say, the archaeological establishment, because when they found the boat, the planked woods, let's say it's right, they want to see a complete boat, and you go, after 8,000 years, the chance of you finding a complete boat is nil. Let's be honest.
Yeah, anything would decay by then. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we saw with Sutton Hoo. You had the impressions in the sand, didn't find the wood, and you just found the rivets.
That's right. Yes.
You're not going to find evidence of an 8,000-year-old boat. But what they did find is planked wood. Now, they found the planked wood there, luckily, because this site flooded with sea level rise. And it was at the right time, and it preserved the wood. So, I have to be honest, I think all future archaeology really should be under the water, because it preserves the findings. But it costs a vast amount of money. They're not prepared to actually pay.
There's got to be some will there, isn't it? Because one theory, I don't know if you're aware of the works of Wilson and Blackett. There's someone we read a lot on this group, and they're looking at the boat building that was taking place, well, much more recently, really. We're talking sort of pre-Saxon times, so from about 500 BC to 500 AD, if you like. Because there's also a very large stone harbour just off the coast of Cardiff in the Severn, and that gets no attention at all. No. And the road leading up to it is even called Portmanmore Road, which is Welsh for the big stone harbour. and you can see it, and he can't get any attention to detail.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right, and the essence of that, and what makes it even more interesting is that, I mean, we're an island nation.
Yes, yeah.
We're an island nation. We talk about Brexit till the cows come home, and we want our fish back, and we want our trawlers back. Yeah. So we have this narrative of having, fish and trawlers. That's great because we're an island nation. I've got no problem with that. But when it comes to history, oh well, we never had fish in the past. We never had trawlers.
Yeah, bizarre, isn't it? No boats or anything. It's weird.
Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it informative. Britain's Hidden History Group has so much more going on our YouTube channel. The one you're watching now, there's a live stream, 8 o'clock UK time every Sunday. We speak to people like Wilson and Blackett, reprint their old books and help produce new ones. We go researching to the tops of mountains, all the way down to the bottoms of caves. Busily recording the books so you can listen to them as well, and looking at mysteries and working out what we're not being taught in schools and preserving it, because the physical and written evidence is rapidly disappearing. You can also find out how to read ancient writing and hieroglyphs using the Welsh language. It's amazing. There's a Facebook group where this is being discussed. Along with a website, you can buy the books and help us. Also, as you can see, there's now a Patreon page where just a few pounds a month will make all the difference in trying to keep the project going and preserve this history for future generations, and also to find out for ourselves what is going on, what is Britain's hidden history. So until the next time, Heddwch!